Good morning, CSL family. Welcome to Sunday morning in the springtime here in Boise, Idaho. Grateful you're here, and we are all grateful that Miss Blaze and Kelly are here. So please give them a big hand.
Hey, thank you. You can play the game, you can act out the part, you know it wasn't written for you. Tell me, how do you stand here with your broken heart, ashamed of playing the fool? One thing can lead to another, doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and brother, sister and mother, feels nice, don't think twice. Shower the people you love and love, show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love and love, show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. You can run, but you cannot hide. No, this is widely known. But tell me what you plan to do with your foolish pride. You're all by yourself alone. Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? Feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true what they say about the squeaky wheel, always getting the grease. Better to shower the people you love and love, show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love, show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Shower the people you love with love, show them the way that you feel. Shower the people you love with love, show them the way that you feel. And all the rain will fall down on me just like a pouring rain. Yeah, to fill me up again and it rains. Love, 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 the sunshine, the way that you feel. Fill me up again and it rains. Love, 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 the sunshine, and it rain down. Town clouds just like a pouring rain, yeah, to fill me up again. Shower the people you love with love, show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will.
Good morning. It's a great day to be alive. Blaze and Kelly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blaze and Kelly, are we in for a treat this morning? Thank you so much for being with us on this beautiful day in Boise, Idaho. This day of sunshine and spring, springing forward as we did spring equinox yesterday. How beautiful it is out. So we welcome you this morning. Those of you who are watching us on Facebook Live, so delighted that you are here with us. Those of you in the sanctuary wearing your mask and socially distancing, so glad that you're with us. Our four-legged ones, you've already seen my godchild, Juno, running around. So we are so honored to have you with us this morning. Of course, Blaze and Kelly in the house once again. So thrilled by that. You're in for a musical treat, my friends. So stay tuned. Of course, none of this could happen without the magnificent Rex Miller, our musical director, Rex Miller, and supporting him this morning on the drums, and all of us being supported on sound, Mr. Phil Bowden. Yes. Ted McClurg, of course, is getting a much-needed day off because we have a magnificent bass guitarist in Miss Mo Kelly. So we are in for a treat this morning. So let's just take a moment as we prepare ourselves for sanctuary. We prepare ourselves for the sacred, holy moment of opening our hearts. Greeted this morning by J.J. Bullock, our board president. So glad to have you here. And our practitioner of the day is Miss Deborah Whitman, who will be bringing forth our spiritual practices. And let's prepare for the word of spirit being spoken through Deborah by taking a deep cleansing breath. And gently give thanks to your healthy and beautiful bodies this morning. Giving thanks to your strong lungs. Breathe in for all of the people on our planet right now that may not be able to breathe for themselves. Take a moment to consciously be in gratitude. So it is.
Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living. It is my honor to introduce Phil Bowden, who will light the world religions candles from the Christ candle. In religious science, we perform this ceremony to acknowledge that all people and all faiths come from one great universal presence, which we call Spirit. In lighting these candles, we honor the one family of humanity, made up of over 4,000 religions and spiritual traditions throughout the world. We light the first candle for the Christian faith, which teaches the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the second candle for Islam. Their chief discipline, religious discipline, is prayer. Here we learn, treat people kindly in this world, and you will have kindness. We light the third candle in honor of Taoism. It is pointed out, can you not see that wisdom is trust, goodness is acceptance, and contentment is simplicity? We light the fourth candle for Buddhism. The goal of Buddhism is to let go. We light this candle for release. The fifth and final candle honors new thought, letting go of all that opposes your purpose, a reliance on the law of God, and an unqualified trust of and in spirit. And now let us quiet our minds and open our hearts to the message being sung by Blazing Kelly.
Feel this wind blow, scatters all these leaves like paper rain. See these days roll back into winter lives again. The tangle of the garden fence is brown and dry. You call me out to point to your November sky. I must have been Gandhi, a Buddha, or someone like that. I must have seen light by the hundreds, and everywhere I went, I must have brought rest to the restless then the hungry too must have done something great to get to have you. Ooh, ooh. And when the cold comes, you are by your fire and fast asleep, I turn the light on, watch the snow outside fall soft and deep. And when the winter morning shines all white and blue, we'll watch the dogs run through the fields like children do. I must have been Gandhi, Buddha, or someone like that. I must have saved lives by the hundred. Everywhere I went, I must have brought rest to the restless, then the hungry too. Must have done something great to get to have you. Ooh, ooh, I suppose stranger things have come to pass, many a forest I can't see. I was so down and lost and faded fast. How did you find your way to me? Oh, I must have been Gandhi, a Buddha, or someone like that. I must have saved lives by hundreds. Everywhere I went, I must have brought rest to the restless, then the hungry too. Must have done something great to get to have you. Ooh, I must have done something great.
Please join me in prayer. Let's just close our eyes. As I looked out on this audience, I realized I see God everywhere. I see God in these seats. I see God in these animals. I hear God in the voices that are singing. I see God in the musicians as they're playing their instruments. I absolutely know and recognize everywhere God is present, in these walls and outside of these walls. And I absolutely know again that myself, everyone within these walls, outside of these walls, are all one with this magnificent, awesome presence that we call God. And it is from this place of knowing this absolute faith that I give thanks, that I bless this service today, that I am so grateful for everyone that is here, everyone that worked to make this service possible. And I am especially grateful for Reverend Jackie Holland as she steps aside, as she lets Spirit speak through her and bring forth a message that each one of us here and beyond is ready and willing to hear. And in this time of new things beginning, in this time of spring, as we move forward, let us keep in mind to release any of the old that is not serving us and to bring forth the new in joy and compassion. And so from this place, I say, thank you, Spirit. Thank you, thank you, thank you with a grateful heart. As I release it into the law, I let it go and I let God do God's work. And together we say, Namaste, Om, Shanti, Ashe, Amen, Aho, and so it is. So let's put our hands together for the beautiful Blaze and Kelly.
Thank you so much. Here's an original song. This is called Thankful. It ties right in with what she had talked about. So grateful to be here this morning. Happy spring, folks. Thankful for love, thankful for peace, thankful for this moment in time to watch you sleep. Thankful for health, thankful for joy, thankful for the light I see in young girls and boys. Thankful for friends, thankful for growth, thankful for the tug of the universe pulling on my road. Thankful for dogs, thankful for trees, thankful I'm tough enough to get back up when I skin my knees. Thankful for time, thankful for tunes in this giant galaxy with the stars and the moon. Thank you, love. Thank you, grace. Thank you for still being alive and surviving a dark place. I give thanks for all I have, and each day I wake up, I can't do it all again. I give thanks for you, forgiveness and courage, and dreams that come true, wisdom and laughter, people coming together, standing tall through disaster. I give thanks for all the wonder and the magic there is to see, and acceptance when I finally arrive. Let my troubles be. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, grace. Thank you for still being alive and surviving a dark place. I give thanks for all I have, and each day I wake up, I can't do it all again. I give thanks for you, endless courage, dreams that come true. I give thanks for another day in this beautiful world. We all get to play and give thanks. Ooh, I 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 give thanks. Ooh.
Blaze and Kelly, ladies and It's my pack. It's my pack. I can talk if I want to talk. I was walking on the Greenbelt this week. Yes, I know it's a shock that I was walking on the Greenbelt this week. Good morning, darling. And I saw a little girl start talking to a squirrel. No, seriously, she leaned down and she started talking to this squirrel that clearly has been fed too much food by you humans on the Greenbelt. But nevertheless, there was a man who walked by her, and he very kindly said to her, "Oh, honey, I don't think that squirrel can understand Spanish." The little girl just kind of looked at him like, well, of course he can. She didn't even question that that squirrel could understand her Spanish that she was speaking. She didn't even question it. It's easy to forget that the way that we see and react in our world is very much shaped by our own perspective. The way we act and live, the way we see in our world is very much influenced by our own perspective. Lately, I've had a real personal opportunity to take a look at that. A situation happened, and I saw it from one perspective. The individual saw it from a different perspective, and I said to myself, were we even in the same room when that happened? You know, it was very interesting. And I have become more and more struck by how we all live in our own world. We live in our own world, our own values, our own beliefs, our own history, our own thoughts. We're influenced by our friends and what we read and what we watch on television. We all have our own perspective. While we can even be in the same family, as Rex and I were talking about this morning, we can be in the same family. I know I've got 3 sisters, and sometimes I have to say to my sisters, were you even there when we're talking about things that happen? Because each of us have our own perspective about what's going on in this world. What I look from will determine what I see. What I look from will determine what I see. Or another way to say that is what we see depends very much on where you're standing. What you're going to see depends very much on where you're standing in your beliefs, in your mores, in your habits, in your consciousness. Coming to church this morning, I had another example of it. I was looking down and I saw an amazingly beautiful dandelion in the crack right there in the middle of the street as I was turning left onto Overland. And it reminded me of my friend in California, my friend Janice, who called and was complaining one time to me about an incident that she had with her homeowners association, which is why I live in a neighborhood where there is no homeowners association, because I would always be in trouble. But anyway, this has been a few years ago where we were in a drought in California. Some of you might remember that. And we had very strict regulations and rules about what we could do, how many times we could water our grass, what time we could water our grass. I don't think we've had that here yet in Boise since I've lived here. But anyway, one November, Janice got a nasty letter from her homeowners association, and they said that she needed to weed her front flower bed. So she went outside and she looked at her front flower bed and she thought, yeah, you know, it really does need to be weeded. And so she weeded it. In December, she received another letter from her HOA, this time a little bit meaner, and said, look, you've got to do something about the weeds in your flower bed. She went outside, she looked at it, she thought to herself, my front yard looks pretty good considering it's the middle of the winter time anyway. In January, she got another irate letter saying that they were going to send somebody over to her house to weed, and then they were going to charge her. Some of you are nodding your head in this room, so I suspect that you've got HOAs that maybe have threatened the same thing by you. I remember one time. Anyway. So she went outside and she looked in her garden once again, and she realized right away that the problem was that her HOA guard dogs, or whatever they're called, inspectors, were not recognizing her flowers as flowers because they didn't recognize it. They thought they were weeds when in fact they were native plants that she had paid a lot of money for, brought in a horticulturist, etc., to help her determine what she could do for the most drought-resistant plants that she could have. She offered to have the horticulturist speak to the HOA about plantings, and she told me later that the silence was deafening from them. I recognize the truth here, that sometimes people do not see things as we see them. And we are seeing them from our perspective. Especially in my case, it's usually interpersonal relationships. If I think somebody's on my side, if I think somebody's supporting me, then I am more likely to take any apparent challenging comments with a grain of salt. I'm likely to just, not be hurt, and open myself up to listen. Yet if I think the person is in opposition or doesn't like me, or some of those silly sophomoric phrases that we like to use about people, I'm likely to take it badly. It's just human nature. I don't think I'm very different from anybody else, but we have a choice. We have a big choice, a huge choice about how we see things. What we see depends very much on where we stand. What we see depends very much on the place we are standing in consciousness. Someone said that life is about 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how we respond. Often we allow the challenges of life to take away our joy, to take away our happiness, to cause us unhappiness. I know that there's a lot of reasons to be unhappy and to be miserable, but most of the time it can simply be boiled down to we have different perspectives. One of the things I used to do with the teen church that I loved very much was to bring those pictures in where you could see 2 or 3 different things. A 6 is a great example. Draw a 6 on the floor and have a person stand in front of it and a person stand at the other end of it. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing a 9, and the other person is seeing a 6. It depends on where we stand. Your consciousness, and it's all about consciousness. I'm using where we stand as a euphemism for consciousness. Our consciousness goes before us announcing our coming to the world. It determines how we're going to shape our life. It determines how we're going to respond to things. It even shapes our destiny. Depending on our consciousness, we will create a life of joy and health and happiness and oneness, or we will create the opposite. It is that simple. But it is not easy. When I become accountable for the content of my consciousness, when I become responsible for the content of my consciousness, then I become accountable for my life. Live in that for just a moment. When I become accountable for my consciousness, then I become accountable for my life, the one that I am creating right now. It's all consciousness. Most of you know the story that's told many times, I'm sure you've heard it many times, about a traveler who came upon an old farmer who was hoeing in his field beside the road. Eager to rest his feet, the wanderer hailed the countryman, who seemed happy enough to engage in conversation and straighten his back and take a break. So the stranger said, "Hey, what kind of people live in that town?" The farmer, being very smart, said, "Well, what kind of people lived in the town that you're coming from?" The stranger answered, "They were a bad lot. They were terrible people. They didn't share anything. They were lazy. They were troublemakers. They were selfish, and not a one of them were to be trusted. I was so glad to leave that town." The farmer looked at him very kindly and said, "Is that so? Well, I suspect that's exactly what you're going to find in this town." Disappointed, the traveler went on his way, and the farmer returned to his work. Sometime later, another stranger came up to the farmer, who was continued to do his work, hailed him and asked him the same question. "What sort of people live in this town?" he asked. "What were the people like that you came from?" asked the farmer, and The stranger responded, "They were wonderful people. They were kind and giving and loving and honest. I'm so sorry to have to be leaving them." "Fear not," said the farmer. "You'll find the same sort of people in the next town." As a master teacher, Jesus said, and Dr. Ernest Holmes, our founder, so often quoted, "It is done unto you as you believe." Another way to say that could be, it is done unto you the way you were looking at it. You are looking for it. You are believing that. In that perspective, I think that if we can take responsibility for the content of our consciousness and the way we are looking at our world, the way we are responding to that 90% of things that the world is throwing at us, then we can determine what we see in our world. We can see what we want to see. I know that this is the truth for us. I know that it is. The old saying goes, "We can run, but we can't hide," tells us that we will take ourselves wherever we go. We will bring ourselves into every situation. Every single situation will have who you are in it right there. We can hide from other people. We can hide from a lot of things, but we cannot hide from ourselves and the content of our consciousness. Where we stand determines what we will see. Where we stand determines the life that we will have. This is an excruciating, deep work that we must do. It is an unceasing, constantly evolving work that we must do. Last week, we said that we as human beings are absolutely evolving every moment, whether we want to or we don't. We will evolve one way or the other. Dr. Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind text, somewhere, I couldn't find the exact quote, but I remember that he said this, that the moment that mankind evolved, stood on his own 2 feet, evolution stopped, and our responsibility for our own evolution began. Our responsibility for our own evolution began the moment we stood upright and began to think. No longer could we depend on nature to provide for us, to show us, to direct us, but we made choice. We had choice. As within, so without. As within, so without is the wisdom that all ancient teachings tell us. As you believe, so shall it be. As you see it, as you believe it, so shall you see it. Our consciousness goes before us, announcing our coming, or as my favorite, Ralph Waldo Emerson used to say, wrote, "Who you are thunders over you so loudly, I cannot hear what you're speaking." Who you are thunders over you so loudly. Who you are is clear to me without even speaking a word, he said. He was speaking here of consciousness. Consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is every thought, belief, word, and deed ever done by yourself and all humanity. We live in conscious world and unconscious world. We live in race consciousness, as Dr. Ernest Holmes used to say, which is the sum total of what everyone else has believed and thought for eons. And it's easy to get pulled into that vortex, but strong is the individual who stands up for themselves and says, I am responsible for the belief system that I am putting in my own consciousness. I am responsible. Dr. Ernest Holmes again said this in The Science of Mind. Whatever we think, act, believe in, feel, visualize, vision, image, read, and talk about are going into the subjective state of our thought. Whatever goes into the subjective state of our thought tends to return to us as some condition, so we alone control our destiny. Listen to that. This is important. Whatever we think, act, believe in, feel, visualize, vision, image, read, and talk about are going into our subjective thought. And whatever goes into the subjective thought tends to return to us as a condition. Well, let me tell you something. For anybody who spends too much time on media like Facebook and Twitter and all those things that people spend their time on, might think our evolution has gone backwards lately. I know sometimes I do. Whatever you think, read, speak about, think about, dream about, believe, listen to, watch, goes into your subjective mind. That's why we say we are responsible for the content of our consciousness, for the level of our consciousness, because who we are thunders over us so loudly that it doesn't matter what we're saying. It's difficult. I know that it is. It's difficult because the core belief of most of humanity is separation. The core belief of most of humanity right now is separation. And in that core belief, we can get pulled into that vortex. We can get pulled into it if we're not vigilant, if we don't stay on top of it, if we don't say, okay, what about this do I believe or do I not believe? From the beginning of time, from the very beginning, humankind has been immersed in a unified belief system. Much of it has not been by our making. Carl Jung referred to this as the collective consciousness. Dr. Ernest Holmes calls it the race consciousness, the conscious belief and the unconscious belief of all of humanity. And it's hard. It's difficult sometimes to change our habits, to change our belief system, because up until recently, those of you who have found this faith and those of you who have found other faiths that teach this philosophy that we are responsible, up to this point, we have tried to change our outside world. We've tried to make change out there. Dare I bring up politics? No. But that's what it's about. Trying to change our outside world. Trying to change our outside world. All change has been directed to the circumference of us, not to the inner us. How many diets have I been on in my life? How many of the same pounds have I gained and lost and gained and lost? Because I was working on the outside. I was working on the effect. It's only when we begin to do the inner work of consciousness, that life truly changes. What are you working on? What are you seeing from your perspective right now? I have my notes turned upside down. I think I'll turn them the other way for you, yes? Life continues and continues and continues to change. We know that another word for consciousness is our belief system. What is your belief system? What are we looking at? We live in a universe that works largely on the law of cause and effect. And as I just indicated, we spend so much time on the effect and very little on the cause. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know what it is that you want to work on, but I do know this. I do know that it's only when we do the deep inner work of consciousness. What is the cause of this? What is the thing that I am holding on to? What is the belief system that I have either attached myself to through no fault of mine? Remember, most of our belief systems came when we were little children. What is it that I believe? And we never once ask ourselves the question, why do I believe that? Jung once again said this: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. Last week we talked about there is no such thing as luck. It's consciousness. Consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Yesterday I was in a meeting where I was talking to some very highly evolved, spiritually evolved individuals. And yet we had a common conversation in which there were like 3 or perhaps even 5 different perspectives on the same thing. I delighted in that. I delighted in listening to the different perspectives of the different individuals in this conversation, because only in allowing myself to listen to the different perspectives on the same thing, wildly different perspectives, was I able to check my own consciousness about something. Was I able to ask myself, this is what I think should happen, but why do I think it should happen? What is it about me that I think should happen? Listen, this change, this working on our consciousness, this idea of changing here in the springtime when everything is blossoming around us and we too are invited by Mother Nature to blossom, this happens in the spring for all of us. And I want to tell you something. You can't change something overnight that took your entire lifetime to create. We're in religious science, and here's what we think. There is no time or space in God, so I want it, and I want it now. I want that change, and I want it now. And here's what I have learned in my wise and many years. Kidding. I have learned this, that it took me a long time to create this. It does not have to take me a long time to release it, but it takes the time that it takes. Does that make sense? And when I can surrender to that, it's going to take the time that it's going to take. And when I surrender to that and allow the Spirit of life itself to have its way through me, as me, magnificent things unfold. We have to build from where we are right now. And we have to cut ourselves a lot of slack is what I mean to say. We have to cut ourselves a break. We have to say, I did what I did based on what I understood at the time. And then we have to be willing to change. We have to be willing to see the harm or the pain or the hurt, and we have to be willing to realize that if I had known to do better, perhaps I would. And by the way, that excuse can only happen so many times, because once you know, you cannot unknow. You cannot unknow. As within, so without. As above, so below. It's all consciousness. Wise people understand that at any minute, our deepest beliefs are on call every minute of our lives. And that it's our job to stay vigilant. What do I believe here? Because consciousness never takes a vacation, ever. It is who we are. Our consciousness alone determines the degree of our happiness. It determines the degree of our abundance, of our joy. It even determines the degree of our health. Yes, our consciousness. That's why in this faith we ask ourselves over and over, what do you believe in more? Do you believe in God and health and wholeness? Or do you believe more in sickness and the flu or whatever it is that you believe in? Where is your consciousness? Where is the direction of your consciousness? Where is the content of your consciousness? Is it in an upstairs consciousness or is it in fear? Where do we place our belief system? That's why we know, if we're wise, that our deepest level, that our deepest belief system in an instant will rear its head. Unless we have looked at our belief system, unless we have looked at it and 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 changed it and believed in something new. Over and over in this faith, we hear what Albert Einstein said over and over, that you cannot solve the problem at the level of the problem. It's another way of saying you can't solve anything at the level of the consciousness that creates it. Why am I speaking about this today? I'm speaking about this today because it has been my experience that spring brings this up for all of us. It is the time when we want to grow and change and blossom and be. It is the perfect time to take a look at why it is that our life has been created the way it has been created. Listen, there's only one thing to look at. What is the content of my belief system? Where am I putting the energy of my belief system? Because my consciousness will determine my destiny. My consciousness will determine my destiny. But how, Reverend Jackie, how, I hear over and over, can I change my consciousness? How? I believe that there's only one way. And I've said it over and over to myself and to those hundreds of teens that I worked with over and over and over, and to all of you, I say, you must question everything. Not just ask yourself, is this true? Is this real? Is this appropriate? But why is it true? Why is it real? Why is it appropriate? We must learn to question everything from a place of love. You know, it is so interesting to me, the things I believe. And when I question them, I realize it's because somebody that I loved and trusted when I was 6 years old told me that. So I believed it. But why? Why? Question, question, question. In a 1903 letter to his protege, the 19-year-old cadet and budding poet, Franz Rilke, wrote this. By the way, Franz Rilke was a Bohemian Australian poet and novelist. He was called the German language poet. And here's the content of his letter to his protege. He said this: I want to beg you, as much as I can, dear sir, to be patient towards all that is unresolved in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves like locked rooms and like books that are written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps, he wrote, you will then gradually, without noticing, live among some distant day into the answer. What would it be if we encouraged our young children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our own children, to live the question? Not just ask the question, but live the question, because the point is to live everything. Live the question now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. You see, here's what I think happens. I think we want to please people so much that we want to live the way that we think that they think it should be done. I know children do that a lot. That's why it's so important for parents to let them question. Don't give them the answer. Let them live the question. If not, all they're going to do is spend the rest of their time trying to live the way that you answered that question for them. Maybe I'm only talking to myself here. But what would it be if, instead of trying to please people by living the way we think they believe it should be done, that we had spent the time in our own lives by asking the question for ourselves, and now the way we live is from that place of authenticity, having answered the question. Whatever your question is, live it, love it, try to love it, he said. Like a book written in a foreign language, try to love it. There's an old story where a traveler, these traveling stories today, right? There's an old story where there's a traveler standing on the side of a river, and he's desperate to get across the river. And he sees a man standing on the other side of the river, and he screams and yells at him, quick, quick, tell me, how do I get to the other side of the river? How do I get to the other side? He yells at this man. The man pauses and looks puzzled at the question. So the traveler yells yet again, come on, help me, please tell me, how can I get to the other side of the river? The stranger on the other side says, Mister, you are on the other side. That's life. You are on the other side. What would it be if we recognized that we are on the other side of someone else's river? What would it be if we recognized that we're on the other side of somebody else's perspective, different from yours? And what would it be, instead of trying to get to that side or have them get to this side, we could somehow be in the question. And I think the question should always be, is this true for you too? Is this your truth? So on this springtime, as we move into the blossoming, remember this: the content of our consciousness goes before us, creates a life for us. And there's only one person that is completely in charge of that, and it's you. Happy spring, my beloved ones. Peace and blessings. Let's just take a breath together. Thank you. Let's just take a breath together and look around. And if you're at home, just look into the camera, turn around, and just let someone know how glad you are that they are here. And if you're at home, just look right here and know that I'm so grateful you're here. We're so grateful that you're here. Namaste. So grateful. And as we invite our practitioner to come, Deborah Whitman, to join us on the stage for prayer, I just ask all of you just to prepare your hearts for prayer. Just take a deep breath. And prepare your heart. As we create this prayer vortex now, for those of you who are at home, if you wish to put your prayer request right now on the Facebook live feed, we have practitioners that are standing by ready to pray with you. Some of them are putting their phone numbers up right now. If you want a private prayer, just call that number and our practitioners will pray with you. For those of you who just want to let your prayer be known publicly, just put it on the prayer line right now. And our practitioners and all on the prayer on the Facebook Live will begin to know the truth and to pray with you.
Again, let's just relax in our seat. Let's close our eyes to avoid any outer distractions. And know absolutely with me right now, right where you are, is the perfect place, the perfect time for you to be here. And know with me that there is only one power and one presence, one God called by so many names. It doesn't matter what you call God, just as long as you open yourself up to know that there is a power and a presence that is so much stronger than you are, so much bigger than you are, and to know that there is no problem, there is nothing too big or too small for God. So whatever it is that is troubling you now, whatever it is that is weighing heavy on your heart, whatever it is that is keeping you closed in, closed off from all that you can possibly be, whatever it is, let's just recognize it right now. Let's just recognize it. Recognize it and let it go. Know that God is there with you at the very center of your being, that deepest part of you, that place of the Most High, that eternal essence is right there within you. Right there within you. ready at any moment to come forth and do the work for you. So the next part is let's surrender. Let's surrender to that power and that presence that is so ready for you. Let's surrender. That does not mean giving in or giving up. That means flowing with that power of life that is so ready to give and bring forth whatever it is that you need. So now let us surrender. Say with me, I surrender.
I surrender.
I let go.
I let go.
I let God be the manager of my life.
I let God be the manager of my life.
And all is well. And it is absolutely from this complete trust and faith that I have in God, in that power, in that love, in that divine, magnificent love, that I let it go. And say with me now, I let it go.
I let it go.
I let God do God's work.
I let God do God's work.
And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Take another deep breath. Let it go. Thank you, Miss Deborah Whitman, our practitioner. Please do call a practitioner or put your prayer right on the prayer line. In 30 minutes, in 35 minutes from now, we will be having our required by nonprofit law and by our bylaws, we will be having a very short, very brief annual meeting. For those of you who are on Facebook Live, Donna, how do they get the Zoom? I'm so sorry. My brain isn't working. Donna Sheedy, how do they get the Zoom link? It's on the website, yes. It's on the website, and it's in the last e-blast. So if you're on Facebook Live right now and you're a member of this church, or you just want to come and hear about the finances for 2020 and so forth, you can go to cslboise.org and find the Zoom link there, or you can go to the last e-blast that was sent to you, and you can get on Zoom through that method. It's going to be very brief, very much to the point. There'll be a question and answer period for anyone who wishes to ask any questions. We will be holding a town hall meeting in the fall when we can come back together and be in the same place together. But we really do need a quorum, so if you can join us and you're a member of this church, you will be the ones that make up the quorum. So please do join us at 12 o'clock noon. If you're in the sanctuary and you want to stay, please join us. There's going to be a couple of individually wrapped snacks and some coffee and some water for you. It's going to be a very brief meeting. And in the meantime, I just want to also, and we'll be making announcements at that meeting, so we will forego them right now, except for this, to say thank you so much for all of your contributions. Last week, our facilities director announced, of course, that we are having to purchase 2 air conditioner heaters at a cost of about $16,000. You know, we were given a $4,000 amazing donation, and another individual has come forth with a matching fund up to $2,000 to help us. So if you can help in any way to defray the cost of the new air conditioner and heater, we are deeply grateful. It will be matched up to $2,000, so your money will be doubled. And that will be $4,000 on top of the actually $5,000 that we have. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Once again, thank you for your support of the Center for Spiritual Living Boise and for our world. Let's just put our hands over our heart, representing that we give and we love and the consciousness of this church, as we bless all of the money that has come in through individuals bill pay or writing checks, giving cash. There are electronic ways that you can also give, which is being put up on the website now, up on the Facebook feed right this minute. Many, many different ways to give. We are grateful for you and the fact that you participate in the law of circulation. Deeply grateful on behalf of the congregation of this church. Thank you. Thank you. So let's just take our gift, our offering, and just hold our hands over our heart and say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. In deep gratitude, we say, we are so thankful. And so it is. Amen, amen, amen. Ladies and gentlemen, the heart of my heart, two deep and amazing friends and musicians, Blaze and Kelly.
Aren't we blessed to have Blaze and Kelly in the house?
Oh,
that was awesome. Thank you. The blessing this week is for us each to allow divine love to go before us and prepare the way for seeming miracles in our lives. Peace and blessings.
Amen.